Ladies and gentlemen, well, welcome to Meat People, this podcast to the Southwest Meat Association. I can't wait to have these conversations, and we're going to do everything we can to make it entertaining and valuable and a great representation of meeting the people. Hey everybody, it's the Meat People podcast. We got Brian Sapp. That's perfect. Get comfortable. I think you're an expert at this already. But for all those guys and gals who worked in the meat business, it might be fun to understand we're doing this at 6:45 a.m.
That's a late start.
Yeah, that's right.
A late start in the meat business.
That's right. We've already got a late start, so we're excited. I say we. I'm excited to talk to Brian. I've kind of known of him. We've been in this business over the years together and doing similar things. So we're just going to jump into the story of Brian Sapp and Fatback and all the things you've done. That's what this podcast is about, the Meat People, the SMA. And so the first question has to be, tell me about Fatback. I mean, if you got the right grandparents, you've heard, hey, give me some of that Fatback.
That's right.
Is that where that comes from?
Yeah, I don't really know the whole story on the Fatback name, but it was a partnership deal that we put together back in 2011 through some friends of my boss at the time, Will Harris down at White Oak Pastures. You had a lot of good friends in the restaurant business and just in the cattle business and just kind of across the country in general. So it was set up. We took an emu processing plant that was built in 1996 in Eva, Alabama. Wound up with the development authority. The emu deal I don't think worked out like they hoped it would, and yes, we took that plant over and turned it into a hog slaughter and fab plant. And the partners in the deal were the guys from Jim and Nick's Barbecue, some of their investors, their distributors. We talk a lot about kind of a three-legged stool in the meat industry through what I've been through. It's having a customer and having a supply, and then you're having that distribution side. And they all three got to be the same size, or the stool's going to tip over.
Yeah.
So thought
that's a great analogy. I mean, I've lived that. So
yeah.
I kind of have always thought about, like, you got to at least have all three legs.
Yeah.
But you said it better. If any one of those legs is too long or not long enough, the stool still doesn't work.
That's
you
right.
might have them all three, but
That's
you
right.
got to have them at least, marginally close to the same length.
Yeah, so I mean that was the deal. We thought we had the three legs put together, and we thought we had them in the same spot. And the Fatback Pig Project name came from Nick Pahakas, which was the owner of Jim and Nick's Barbecue at the time. And he kind of put together had a program around it, and had a Fatback collective that was some hot shot barbecue chefs out of the southeast there, and it was just a deal that was supposed to take off and hit the ground running. I think what we all really found out pretty quick was the cost of doing business in a small meat plant, and the challenges that it presented with raw material costs going into food service, in that he was previously buying commodity meats.
Right.
And now we were trying to build a program around, either a pasture raised or something a little different on the pork side. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't handle the cost of the raw material going into his restaurants. So all that being said, it just it didn't work like it was supposed to.
Yeah.
I was a partner in the deal. Had money up front. And the plant just kind of sat there and kind of flailed in the wind for a little bit after he kind of pulled out. Jim and Nick sold. He got out of it. Some of the investors kept putting some money in it, kind of diluted what I had as far as ownership goes. But over time, those guys that are still in the restaurant business, they're out of Nashville and Birmingham. Fresh Hospitality is their group.
Yeah.
They kind of kept it going, and we kind of revived it. Or I say they kind of revived it, around 2000 or 2020, 2021, and really kind of took off from there. But
see, I mean, isn't that, like, I just want to say, yeehaw or suey or something, because that story gives me hope, or it makes me feel like, you know what, it's possible. Don't quit. Believe in it. It's like, so tell me about geez, I'm sitting here thinking about so many things I want to ask you about. You said just kind of offhanded there. Well, a guy I used to work with, Will Harris. Maybe let's talk about that a little bit.
Kind of a name there.
Well, I mean, he's an interesting guy. I sure, some listeners are going to be, they're just not going to know.
Yeah.
Wild Pastures. I mean, not Wild Pastures, but White Oak Pastures and Will Harris. But I do. And most anybody who's kind of been in the better for you, natural, organic, pasture raised, regenerative type side of this business will have heard of it.
That's right.
So what was that like?
I guess I need to back up just a second.
Yeah, sure. Back it up.
And kind of what that process was. I wasn't a meat guy growing up.
Yeah.
My family didn't own a meat business. Born and raised in South Central Florida. We farmed old lake bottom, deep muck land. We farmed a caladium bulb, which was a flower plant. Kind of grows almost like a potato. You can think about that process.
Yeah.
And we sold the bulbs. We sold those tubers to greenhouses and landscapers, a lot of it in Texas at the time. So I didn't grow up in the meat business. Through kind of elementary school on into early middle school, I played a little ball and we played some baseball and some soccer and messed my knees up and kind of had to get out of that deal. But my meat career started in 2004 when I moved to the University of Florida and took a part-time job in the meat lab.
There you go.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew when I moved to Gainesville as a junior, I stayed home and did some stuff. Went to community college and transferred to University of Florida in 2004 and took that part-time job. And growing up as a farm boy, I was an early bird. So I started taking classes in the morning. And I'd go to the meat lab to work in the afternoons. Well, we know what happens in the afternoons at the meat lab. You get to clean up.
Right.
And that's an important part of the process. But that next semester, I was like, man, I want to go learn how to cut meat and slaughter animals and learn the process. And so that's what I did. And so I got connected with Will Harris through a professor from the University of Florida that I'd met, Dr. Tim Marshall. Super good guy. And Tim Marshall was the kind of guy that if you did right, he'd help you.
Yeah.
But if you didn't, he wasn't going to put his name out there because he was a good dude. Now he knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So he got me and Will Harris hooked up in December of 2007. And I drove to Bluffton, Georgia on my Christmas break from college.
Yeah.
And Will Harris had poured a slab, about a 5,600 square foot slab, to build a meat processing plant on his farm. He was raising some grass-fed beef using some third-party guys that were slaughtering some animals for him that were 2 hours away from his farm. Had got some product at the time into Publix, and had got some product into Whole Foods.
Yeah.
He sold the first pound of domestic grass-fed ground beef to Publix in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003. And so when I went to meet him, he said, we have this plant ready to go in June. And it was just a slab.
Yeah.
I looked at him. I said, man, I don't know if that timeline's going to work, but let's see if we can make a deal.
Yeah.
And I can come work for you. I don't have a whole lot of experience, but it kind of goes back to a professor of mine. The first thing he said when I walked in there at University of Florida, he said, I'm going to learn you how to learn.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize what he was saying at the time because I was still a little young and a little wild. But looking back on that, just those words, I'm gonna learn you how to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And meeting Will Harris that day, and kind of taking that position, and he offered it to me before I left there that Sunday. To come work for him and run that plant. I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
So
you just say, all right.
Yeah, I said, I need something to do. I'm going to graduate in May. I don't have anything lined up. I know I don't want to move to the Midwest and be a HACCP coordinator somewhere in a big plant. It's not what I enjoy.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I know how to weld, and I know how to fiberglass, and I know how to fix stuff. I was, farm boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know a whole lot about the meat business at the time, except what I'd learned either through the meat lab or riding a 15-passenger van on the livestock meat evaluation team, for a couple of years.
So you judged meat?
I did. We did. We didn't have a strictly meats team at the time, so we were doing the livestock evaluation, and that was in Oklahoma City at the stockyard.
Yeah.
And then they would slaughter those animals while we were there, and then we judged those carcasses, the next day or two after that.
All right.
So that
it is this cool piece of the truth of the Meat People podcast.
Yeah.
Almost everybody I've talked to has judged meat in college in some way. Save 3 or 4, of us. I never did. But almost everybody I've talked to has. It just says something about, like, the people that are in this industry, that are in this association, have had a tilt towards, a passion, a tilt, an interest in meat.
And I bet a lot of them spent some time in a meat lab, too.
Yeah.
I bet they have.
That's right.
And I think that's where, my type of folks that are in this industry were built through that system, that realized that, hey, if that 15-passenger van is going to leave in the morning, I don't know where it's going, but it's leaving from animal science. I need to be on it.
Yeah.
And having that experience and being able to travel like that and see things that I certainly wouldn't see in the Southeast, a big beef slaughter plant,
sure.
or maybe a big chicken plant, but
farming flowers.
But yeah, I mean, you get out there in the Midwest, you just see stuff. And that first time I walked in there, and we were practicing at Creekstone, and I walked in there and saw that facility, and my mind just started turning. Like, man, this is really something.
Yeah, I hope there's people listening. Some of them kids, and I say kids, young adults, in college, out of college, and hear that kind of. They can see it if they're watching on YouTube. The wow in your face. It's just like, man, this is people. You can make a living in the meat industry in a lot of ways.
A lot of ways, and
it is really cool. I'm pretty sure every industry is going to say something like that, but they're wrong. Meat is really cool.
That's it. And I don't care what you're good at. There's something for you in the meat industry.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a welder, if you're good at paperwork or Excel documents or fixing refrigeration or electrician.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, or you're a salesman.
Yeah.
There's a spot for you in the meat industry somewhere.
I'm telling you, those really good maintenance people keep these plants running. They're impossible to find. And when you have them, you love them.
It's tough. Yeah, it's a tough deal. And that kind of goes back to the Will Harris story. And when I went and met with him that December, I stayed at his house in the top story. Well, I was there 3 or 4 days. And
I got to shout out a name right quick. Bert Walton. That guy was a maintenance man at Peterson's. Still is. Leader of that team. Awesome. Like, I'm just sitting here thinking, I can't even hear what you're saying because I'm thinking about Bert Walton.
I'm going to throw mine out. Cecil Patterson, that I just hired back in October, is a killer now.
That's right. It's just special. They do a really important piece of what makes it possible for beef, pork, chicken to get to you and me when we're feeding it to our families at the house or eating it at the restaurant. So anyways, that was I just totally interrupted your train of thought.
No, that's fine. We go back to that meeting I had with Will Harris in his driveway one evening. He drank wine. Back then I couldn't drink wine. I had some beer in the truck. And we were standing out in front of his house, and I was driving a 2004 pickup, and I had built some steel bumpers on the front and back of it. Personally, I built them myself.
Yeah. And
I didn't know it at the time. We were out front, and he kind of leaned up on the hood and kicked his boot up there, and we was just talking across the hood and had his boot up there on that bumper. And he said, "Man, that thing's nice." I said, "Yes, sir, I built that." And he kind of looked at it a little funny and kind of looked around back and said, "You built that one too?" "Yes, sir, I did." Well, come to find out, a year later, I heard him telling the story. He's like, he was talking to somebody, and he said, that day we was up there at the house, and I kind of kicked my boot up there and saw them bumpers, and you said that you'd build them. He said, "I knew at the time I was going to get you hired." He said, "You may never strike an arc on this farm, but a boy with a master's degree in meat science that can weld,
Yeah.
There ain't a whole lot of them out there.
Right.
Yeah, but
I like that guy's perspective on stuff.
Yes.
Just like he thinks about, he's just kind of his little, and little's an unfair word, but his brain is just going.
It's always. I
think yours is. I think everybody's is.
And I think I got some of that from him for working with him for 15 years. But he seemed like he was always a step or maybe two ahead on the critical thinking side of what a business should look like.
Well, he had that kind of confidence it takes to understand you are ahead. And everybody going to think you're crazy and tell you that, and also kind of hate you for it because you're putting pressure on them in ways they don't either see or believe. So, high five, Will Harris.
And like I told you yesterday when we were kind of talking a little bit, he was always let's go and pull that trigger, and then we'll worry about aiming it when we get rolling. Yeah, and that there's not a whole lot of folks out there that can do that and be successful at it, but. Kind of fast forward to that May of 2008. I graduated, had my truck loaded at graduation, and drove to Bluffton, Georgia, that evening. And plant was probably 90% done. And and it was one of those deals where he was trying to build a brand and build a business and sell some product and make sure that we had plenty to do in that plant. And it's like I showed up there and he handed me the keys to a $2.5 million plant. He said, "Here, you do this, and I'm gonna go to Atlanta, and wherever I got to go, I'm gonna sell meat. You run this. You keep this going."
Registration is now open for SMA's 70th Annual Convention and Suppliers Showcase, happening July 22nd through the 25th. Join the Southwest Meat Association for one of the industry's longest-standing events, bringing together professionals from across the meat industry for networking, education, and connection. From engaging sessions to valuable face-to-face opportunities on the Supplier Showcase floor to activities and experiences that make it fun for the whole family. This is an event you don't want to miss. Visit our website to register today and secure your spot.
Hello, meat people. This is Rick Kimbrell with Start Clean. I want to share with you real quick about how ocean near misses and recordables can be related to each other. We chose to reduce the number of recordables by using the red card, yellow cards used in soccer. We use it proactively to coach safety and to have more conversations with our employees about safety. It's familiar, it's non-threatening, it's a great warning system. Call us, it's a free program. I'll be happy to share it with you to keep all of our meat people safe.
I'm going to just say it. You never ran a plant before.
No.
Okay. And it's a brand new one.
Yes.
So everything in there feels expensive.
Correct.
Every piece of equipment is brand new. It's like, oh my gosh, you're putting the first scratch on everything. Right. It's like, okay, now that's kind of scary. How many people had you hired and worked in your life so far?
I mean, I hadn't been the boss of anybody. I watched my daddy do it. My daddy, he worked help and during the summertime and farming and through the process of growing those and harvesting those caladium bulbs and all that. So I'd kind of seen what that looked like. Yeah. But I didn't know what kind of boss I needed to be.
Sure.
And I think being a boss it really depends on kind of where you're at and what the help looks like. Some of them need a little more attention than others.
Yeah.
But when I got there, I hired.
Did you find yourself trying to do it all?
I did.
Yeah.
And that goes back
that's
to that
kind of the first thing you go through.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it all.
It goes back to that
I can't trust any of these
and the
people.
HACCP side and making sure it's all good. And, when I stunned that first animal on June the 3rd and put that blood on the floor, man, it felt good.
Yeah.
And then from there, the next 6 months or so, I was doing it all. And Will Harris, he came to me and said, "Son," he said, "this thing will never be bigger than you are if you don't get some help."
Yeah.
And I still look back on that because it's an important piece of it.
Sure.
You got to have some help.
Yeah.
You can get so big. You can do it all for a period of time, or you can do it all to a point where you're this big, and you'll never go any more than that.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think of the SMA. Like, the SMA to me is help.
Yeah.
It's that thing that helps you break through whatever ceiling you might be bumping against, because there's so many kinds of help. There's actual physical labor help. There's like, I believe in you kind of help.
Right.
And then there's like expertise and wisdom help. And that to me is what SMA offers.
Yeah. And I've learned that over the years is, being a part of some associations and, doing a little travel and meeting folks and shaking hands. And, I was talking to somebody the other day, if I got a problem with a piece of equipment, I type in riser in my phone, there's 28 phone numbers show up. You're like, I don't know which one I needed, but we're going to start here, and we're going to figure out where to go.
Sure.
And and building those relationships through these associations, has been an extremely important part of it. And kind of the process that I went through to start that. Being a part of the Southeastern Meat Association, starting that back in 2009, and we. You had a pretty good association, and and we just, I think the association part of this is having something to offer your people that are paying money to be a part of it.
Right.
And there was, SMA is a great example. There's some other ones out there that built a team of folks that they had enough money to pay to be in the office, and
staff, Joe, Lacey, the people, you bet.
We kind of ran with an executive director, and in the summertime we had a nice meeting at the beach somewhere, and everybody got to hang out and have a drink together and talk about it, and I just feel like over the years we just started losing interest from the processing side.
Yeah.
And once you start losing those, and they don't show up at the convention, the associates they don't want to come either.
You're talking about a thing I don't think we've addressed on the podcast yet, and that is the diligent hard work that is required to keep an association together. Like, it don't just stay together.
It don't do itself.
Because we want it to.
Right.
Like, the Joe and Lacey have to do a great job of working every day to build it. Then you, me, all the other members have to do a good job of showing up, of saying, hey, I don't like this, or hey, I love this, hey, I need this.
Yeah.
How can we get this for me here?
Or in the road saying, hey, you need to be a member of that.
Yeah.
And continuing to grow it and build it and get folks.
Share the podcast, John. We're trying to get people aware of the value of SMA, of the people that are in the SMA. I've sat in front of, I don't know the number, but a lot of business owners, business people that say, my business thrives thanks to SMA.
Yeah.
Like, that's simple of a thing. It's like, really? Well, yeah. Right. 80% of my customers, 80% of what I do comes from within these walls, within these people that are here.
Yeah. And I'm too new for that yet.
Sure.
But I see the value in it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. That's why I came back. I've been to the last two summer meetings, and found the value in this. And, and that's why I'm here. Because I think it's an integral part of the business. Yeah. And me being on the other side of the river, I don't know everybody yet, or what they do, or what their strengths and weaknesses are. But.
Well, how do you feel? This is a great thing. How do you feel the group has treated you?
It's all been great. It was open arms. When I came the first time.
It's a good perspective.
Yeah.
I say that. My memory of it is 20 years
ago.
That's right.
I think a lot of them are.
Yeah, sure.
Especially from the processor
I'm glad to
side.
hear that that's kind of still true today for a guy that's, from across the river and doesn't know a lot of people already. And so,
and I know this this business well enough now. I was thinking the other day, I've been in this for 22 years.
Yeah.
And that's longer than I wasn't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm 42 years old. I've been in it 22 years. That's longer than I have not been in the meat business.
Yep.
And building these relationships and the opportunities that I have in front of me to build this Fatback Pig Project business up is, we're in the business. We're not trying to build a brand. We don't have stuff in retail.
Yeah.
We're trying to run a business.
Yeah.
And make money. If somebody tells you you're charging them too much, I'm here to make money for me.
Right.
You figure out what you need to do to make money for you, but this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
So that's I'm unapologetic about making money now. That's what I'm in.
Did
this
you
for.
used to be apologetic for it? Did you feel like it was kind of a cheating or something?
I think it was kind of stressful for me to know that I'm going to make 50 cents a pound on that, and I'm going to sell 100,000 pounds of it. Man, maybe I ought to back off a little bit.
Right.
But then when you start looking at paying $180,000 a load for briskets coming in there, that's cash out within 7 days, knowing you're not going to sell it and get paid for it. For another 30.
Yeah.
And you're paying a loan and paying an interest note, and I mean I'm unapologetic about it now. That's what I'm here for.
If we can't make money, we don't survive. You're not here anymore.
I mean, you can build another stool out of talking about the money and the flow and what that is, and when one of them's out of whack, it's going to fall.
Yeah. That payment terms thing's a crazy scenario. It's like, I'm buying all the raw meat on 7 days. I'm selling all my finished product, 10 days later on a 30-day term. So now I'm 40 days away from getting my money. Yeah, it's like you got to have good bankers, by the way. There's some bankers in the SMA.
I just met one last night. We had a good conversation. I got his card. I'm good. But just the struggles in the meat industry from a cash flow perspective. It was the same way, when I was even killing live animals. Yeah. You got to pay for the live animals within 24 hours. Yeah. That's the rules. And trying to keep that afloat from a cash flow perspective, knowing that the income, the sheets at the end of the month were showing you were making money. But where is it?
Right.
It was all tied up somewhere in the system.
Yes. Again, accrual versus cash-based accounting is like the nuances of business.
Yeah.
Are just huge. It's why I used to think I knew it all. Mm-hmm. Like about 18 years old, nobody knows more than I do. I got it all. Yeah. I know it all. And at 48, I'm like, I don't know anything. I'm not sure I know anything. It's the craziest turn of events.
Right. And then, tomorrow you think you know everything about that, and something comes up, you're like, man, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's right.
But going back to, just the opportunities, a good finance manager that understands a cash flow side of things. And we, in my first 15 years there at White Oak, I say not the whole 15, but the first 5 or 6, the way we did accounting, Will Harris come in his office and type in his password to the bank and say, oh, yeah, we got some cash today. We're good. He'd leave and come back 3 or 4 days later. He'd check it again and say, we're getting a little tight. Yeah. And that's the way he ran it, and then a napkin or a paper on his desk that he kept tracking it. He would write it every day. And, but it was fine, but we were running, at the time, it wasn't just running a meat plant. We had a farm, 750 head of mama cows. We built a poultry plant in 2011. Started putting pigs on the farm and sheep and goats, and went from 1,500 acres to 3,000, and went from when I got there in 08, 4 or 5 employees to 180 employees.
Oh,
and the thing about the 180 employees, they weren't all in the building.
Right.
The majority of them were in a truck or a tractor or something in the field. You couldn't watch them. Yeah.
Back to that. I'm so glad you got us back to that. You're like the best host. Well, we were talking about, learning that you couldn't do it all by yourself. Do you remember who your first kind of person you handed some responsibility to and felt pretty good about?
Yeah, and I think it was more on the production side than anything. There was a couple young boys that knew their daddies. They were, one of them a little bit younger than me, a year or two. I hired him and kind of put him over the processing room, and you'd hired an older gentleman and kind of put him over the slaughter room. Yeah, kind of turned me loose a little bit where I didn't have to be so hands-on. And then, hired a young man to just an hourly laborer. We called him Buck. And, hired him. I guess I'd been there about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. And he was young and kind of needed a job. He may have been in a little trouble at the time. Yeah. And so I found Buck he'd work in the processing room or grinding beef or whatever. And then in the afternoons, I'd been there doing paperwork, and he'd sit down across my desk, and he's kind of watching and talking a little bit. And he just kept doing it. I was like, man, I just kind of went with it. I didn't know what was going on. Hell, a year later, I was like, why don't you just move up here in the front and take some of this?
Yeah.
This HACCP stuff, or this billing, or whatever it is, and keeping track of this, and that's when the kind of the relief came off, and I got to say, as I found ways to reduce, kind of what my responsibilities were by passing it off, I don't know that the stress level ever went down.
Sure. You just picked up kind of other stuff. Or...
when I was still, I had a girlfriend that I'd met at college, which became my wife, 5-6 years later. But, I was living in Bluffton, Georgia. There wasn't nothing else to do but work. So I, went down there and leased a little 450-acre piece of land and, bought some cows and put on it. And, that's what I did in the evenings from, 7 to 9. But everything else was, it's centric to White Oak Pastures.
Yeah.
And doing what I had promised Will Harris that I was going to do that day and get it done. And then, and the challenges that come with that is, I always knew it was a family business. It was family owned. It was family land. And I knew I'd never own a part of it.
Yeah.
And that was fine, but I treated it like it was mine.
Yeah.
I did everything I could to make it successful. And as we grew and things, evolved and changed, and, when I, we sat down and I told him, January of 2023, January 1st, I'm kind of out. Whole Foods had, some of these folks know the Joe Rogan podcast and the Whole Foods deal, and they had already kicked us out, and he threw the curveball at me. I mean, it was kind of the last Hail Mary deal, but I couldn't get excited about trying to build something else.
Right.
That I knew I wasn't going to own any of.
Yeah.
And he knew that too. He told me, he said, "You'll never own any of this." I mean, he was straight up with it.
Yeah.
And I felt like 15 years I put in a lot of time and effort there to get to a spot where I felt like that, it's kind of time for me to move on.
Yeah.
And the Fatback Pig Project deal, he was an original partner. Me and him had split a 25% partnership in that to begin with through another little company that we had built called Rock Mine Farms, which I still own today as 100% ownership. That's how we bought into the Fatback Pig Project deal. And then over the years, my Rock Mine Farms deal was my cow deal and hay deal, and owned some equipment. And I got to the point where I kind of wanted to own a piece of land instead of renting it. And I kind of went to him and said, what do you think about this? The Rock Mine Farm deal. He said, I haven't done anything with it. I haven't put any money in it. You've been running it. That's fine. You take that. So what came with that was the full ownership of the whatever's left, the 15% of Fatback Pig Project.
Sure.
And I bought a piece of property and felt like I was had finally got to the point where I could own something that was mine and a house and and that kind of stuff. And
just want to go.
Man,
I got it.
Damn, it's been hard to get here, but I think for these small plants that are in the slaughter business, that's where all my stress was coming from.
Yeah. Just
from the regulatory side and knowing that at any point in time that somebody could make a mistake back there on that kill floor and it shuts down the whole process. Mm-hmm. It could be for 3 or 4 hours, it could be 3 or 4 days, or it could be 3 or 4 weeks. We don't know until we get there.
Yeah.
And that was when I walked out of that thing in January 1st of 2023 and got out of that slaughter business. It felt like my shoulders were 8 inches lower. I mean, it was just such a relief that I didn't know what was causing it.
Right.
But I figured it out. Yeah. And at that point, I went on the road a little bit. I was going to be a consultant running the roads, and wound up at a cow slaughter plant down in Central Florida, Florida Beef, and they had a big old grinding line in that plant that when they had bought it 3 or 4 years prior to that, and he wanted to get it back up and running. Spent a tremendous amount of time in there. Just working on that. Met some other folks through the consulting deal that were building some little plants that, were having some challenges. And I don't know. I kind of found out that I really didn't want to be a consultant. I don't think it was really my thing.
Yeah.
And then the Fatback partners called me, and I guess I'd been about June of 2023, and the plant manager was leaving, and you want to come back in as the operating partner, at Fatback. I hadn't really considered it, but I hooked the camper up a week later and moved up there. The kids were in school and trying to finish up, and it was a good move, and kind of getting out of that slaughter business I was going to say this earlier, when we were talking about, kind of ideas and people, the way they can contribute. What a lot of people don't understand on the, especially on the slaughter fab side is we're talking about a disassembly. Yeah. You're taking something that's alive and this big, and now it's a carcass and it's this big, and now it's fixing to be meat and it's this big. But you can cut it 578 different ways and make something different out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so understanding
the disassembly business.
Yeah, the disassembly side of it. And then when I got on the fatback side, we're buying in raw materials, so I'm back on kind of an assembly deal.
Side.
Trying to we still got some yield loss and that kind of stuff, but the numbers are a heck of a lot easier to look at and understand that I'm probably losing a little money here, making a little money there. I can change it with labor or fixing the flow or whatever. Mm-hmm. On the slaughter side is, man, I'm losing $100 a head on that. I don't know what I can change except maybe put 2 or 3 more head through there a day.
Right.
And
sell whatever you got at the end of the day for a little more.
And I mean that that little facility there in South Georgia was built for, I don't remember, it was like 50 head a week is what it was designed to do. And there for quite some time I was putting 140, 150 head through it a week.
Yeah.
And it was kind of one of them running 200 mile an hour deals. That, you don't ever know when it's going to run off the rail, but it will. Yeah. Luckily we stayed out of that. But it was just a super good experience. And and these college folks that are coming up now, just the opportunities and I try to have an intern every summer, to kind of help some folks get interested and find what they want to do. But like I said earlier, if you're a welder or if you're a refrigeration guy or an electrician, the meat business, it's there's a lot of fun in it. Yeah. It might be a little chilly sometimes when you're in there in the freezer trying to fix that fan up there and it's -10 and blowing in your face. But there's some other good stuff about it too.
Who was I talking to? This is kind of a problem being a podcast host.
Right.
Or even just a real talkative type person. I love talking to people. I forget who I was talking to about whatever this thing is that's in my mind right now. But the concept is still good. It's still, I think, worth sharing. If it's not hard, it's really not worth much. Oh, I know who I was talking to about it. It was Pat Nicholson. We're talking about Mike Leach, and Mike Leach had made a speech to his football team, something like, fellas, we just won a game that was very hard. Mm-hmm. And you're going to remember it for the rest of your life. You're not going to remember the game 2 weeks ago we won by 50 points.
Right.
You're going to remember this one because it was hard and we did it together. That's business.
Yep.
And that, when you're up there, nobody else is going to do it, and you're standing in front of that -10 fan blowing in your face. That's when you're doing something that's worth it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that analogy. Everybody says if it's hard, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Yeah, I think if it's hard, you put yourself in another level.
You're forging a better human.
That's right. Yeah.
Man, Brian, what a great conversation. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your story, your experience of kind of being the new guy at the SMA. Everybody out there watching, thanks for watching. Like you coming to either YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts and paying attention to these conversations is helping us, and we appreciate it. So y'all check out.
Again, I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak and be a part of this SMA deal. And I'm on the train, so let's keep it rolling forward.
Yeah, that's right. Pour the coal to it.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, y'all go do some business with the Fatback Pig Project.
Oh, and we got a barbecue restaurant down in Birmingham. I know we're talking barbecue in Texas is a little tough, but we opened it up back in March, and then it's doing very well. The Burning Tree Barbecue. So
that's what's on your cap.
That's right.
Now I got it. I got it. Because here, in full transparency, which everybody, sometimes it's just fun to say, like this thing's kind of a shit show anyways. We don't know exactly what's happening here with this podcast. Brian sits down, and I'm sitting here, well, I know Fatback, but I don't know the rest of it. So I'm looking at your cap, hoping that says what your brand is, and then it's Burning Tree, and I'm like, dang, that ain't it. But actually it is.
It is, yeah. So, Burning Tree Smokehouse, a little 3,500 square foot USDA facility we opened in Birmingham, and then we've got a barbecue joint there next to it, Burning Tree Barbecue, and he's doing a stellar job with it.
Awesome. Great. Well, high five to everybody. Last question. Did you ever slaughter an emu?
I didn't.
No.
And that was kind of the deal now. If I was going to open this thing back up, I didn't want anything to do with the emu deal.
Everybody, thanks for listening. This is the Meat People Podcast. Brian, thanks for being here.
Thank y'all.